Hello lovelies, in this video the brilliant mixture means we're using trigonometry to find the area of triangles. There are 15 examples in this video, worked through at 3 different levels, and you can use the timestamps to jump between those levels. If you're finding it a bit too hard, you can go backwards. If you're finding it too easy, you can accelerate forwards. Do this at your own pace. If you want more practice questions, there are loads available completely free over on my website.
We're going to find the area of triangles using trigonometry. Now you might be thinking, well, I already know how to find the area of a triangle. It's going to be base times height and divide by 2. And that's right, but all those triangles you've used before, they would have had a right angle in a 90-degree angle, and the base and the height have to be at 90 degrees. Now, if you look at these triangles, they have what look like to be bases and height, but the angles are not at 90 degrees. So what we have to do, you have to make a little correction. The way that we make a correction for these angles not to be 90 degrees is by using some trigonometry, and we have a formula. So to find the area of a triangle, the formula is half of A times B, and that's basically what you've been using already. Half, and we've got kind of a base and a height. Now the correction we're going to make is we're going to use sine C just to correct for the angle. The way that that works is if it's a 90-degree angle and you type in sine 90 is actually 1, and you're multiplying by 1 and nothing changes. But if you're at either side of 90, you'll get a different number, and it's just going to correct you have base times height. So looking at the letters in this formula, A and the B are taking the position of base and height, so 297 could be A, and 283 could be B in question 1. And then for sine C, capital C, is going to be the angle 87. Now, what about the other labels? So the third side would be a little c, which we're not using. And then the other 2 angles would be a big A and B. Now, it doesn't actually matter kind of what order these letters are in. What does matter is that the little letter for a side and the capital letter for the angle are opposite each other. So you can see that little a and big A are opposite, the little b and big B are opposite, and the little c and the big C are opposite. And essentially, if you have a look at this, the 2 sides we're using, the angle is in between the 2 sides. So for question 1, we're just going to go through the formula one step at a time. So we start off with a half. Then we have A. In algebra, letters next to each other are going to be multiplied, so 297. Then we have B, 283. And then we have sine C. So we can write in sin. And then the C is referring to the angle, which was 87 degrees. And what you want to do is write that down nice and clear for your teacher to see, for your examiner to see, because you're going to get some marks for writing this down. Once you've written it down, you then just type it into your calculator. So start off with a half. Now you can use a fraction key here, or you can use 0.5. Type multiply symbol and 297. Multiply again, 283. Multiply again, press the sin key. Make sure you open the bracket. Some calculators will do this for you. If it doesn't open the bracket, type in 87 and make sure you close the bracket. Now it should give you an answer of 41,967. And I'm going to round to 1 decimal place, so that should be 0.9. Then keep an eye on the units as usual for area. This is in centimetres, so if a length is centimetres, a 2D area will be centimetres squared with a little 2 to show it's 2D. So let's try that again with question 2. So it starts off with a half. Now I haven't labelled the triangle. It doesn't matter which way around A and B go, as long as they're the 2 sides at either side of the angle. We don't want to be using the other measurement that's opposite the angle. So I can write in the 32 and the 27 for A and B. Doesn't matter which way around. Then sine, and again the angle has to be the angle that's in between the 2 measurements, which was 84 degrees. So then we can type this into our calculator, 0.5 times 32 times 27 times sin, open brackets, type in 84 and close the brackets. Pressing equals, my answer is 429, and to 1 decimal place again, that will be 0.6, and we are still working in centimetres, so centimetres squared. Moving on to question 3. So again, first thing to do, just make sure the two sides are at either side of the angle, and they are, so we can go ahead. And now maybe a bit more confident, we can type it into the calculator straight away. So 0.5 multiplied by 95 multiplied by 67. Then we're going to multiply it by sin, and it's a sine of 94. So then pressing the equals button, I'm getting 3,174, and it's 0.7 to 1 decimal place, centimetres squared. Moving on to question 4, and again typing straight into the calculator, we can see that our two sides are at either side of the angle, so we can use the formula. So 0.5 multiplied by 127 multiplied by 179, and again they can be either way around, and then multiplying by the sine of 52 degrees. And then after pressing the equals, you should get the answer 8,956, and to 1 decimal place it's 0.9, and it's centimetres squared again. So we should be seeing it's fairly simple. As long as you can remember the formula and use the formula, this is going to be no problem. You're just multiplying everything together on a calculator, and the numbers are given for you in these questions. So it's not really taking us a lot of time to do these. So you might be tempted when you start question 5 to go, well, I don't need to write down all of the question. I can go straight into my calculator. I can write down 0.5, multiply by 171, multiply by 249, and then multiply by the sin of 32, just copying everything that you've done before. And then you might be tempted to just write your answer down, which would be 11,281.7 centimetres squared to 1 decimal place. Now, this will usually get you 4 marks, but always make sure, like we did in question 1, 2, 3, and 4, write down your full substitution so the examiner can see what you've done. And that way, if you do make a mistake, you've pressed the wrong button on the calculator, maybe you've got something the wrong way around, you've chosen the wrong number from the diagram or the question, you're still going to get some marks because you've shown that you understand what the formula is and how to use the formula. Whereas if you just write an answer and you've made a mistake, the examiner, your teacher, they don't know what you've done wrong, and you're going to get 0. Now, where these questions might get more complicated is where you're not actually trying to find the area, you're given the area, and you're trying to work backwards and find either the angle or a side. So when that happens, first thing to do, always write down the formula. It's going to help you not be confused later on. So the area is going to be equal to half multiplied by A, multiplied by B, multiplied by the sine of C. And then once you've done that, just substitute in which values you have in the diagram. So we know what the area is. The area is 28,587.9. There's nothing to substitute with a half, but then the A and B, they're going to be the sides on both sides of angle C. So we're multiplying by 218.2 and 265.3. And then we're going to multiply again, and that's by sine of C, but we don't know what C is, so we can't write anything in there. So now we've done our substitution, we're going to try and simplify this a little bit. And the bit we can simplify is we have a string of 3 multiplications in the middle. We have the half multiplied by 218.2 multiplied by 265.3, and we can actually work that out. So typing all that into a calculator, we're left with the area is staying the same. We didn't do anything to this bit, but those multiplications are giving us 28,944.23. I'm not going to round just yet. I'll wait until the end to round. And then we still need to multiply by the sin of the angle. And now it's just a matter of solving the equation. So we want to try and get C on its own. It's been multiplied by the 28,000 number, so let's divide both sides by that. If you divide both sides by that, you should be getting 0.987689083. Let's write down all the decimal places here because I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with simplification later on. Your calculator might have a couple less places, a couple more places. It's probably not going to make a difference. And on the other side, we're going to be left with sin C. Now, we want C equals, how do we get rid of the sin? Well, we use inverse sin, which you might remember when we're doing trigonometry. So press usually Shift and the sin button, and I'll get a little sin to the -1. And you're going to do that to our number, 0.98 and so on. And what that should give you is, for me, I'm getting a number that's very, very close to 81 degrees. Now, what my calculator actually shows is 81.000, and then we've got 27208. So what that's telling me is there is a rounding error somewhere. Perhaps the area itself has been rounded to one decimal place, like I did with the easy questions. And so the extra decimal places are accounted for by that rounding error. But if you get an 81.000, it's safe to say it's 81. So 81 is the answer to question 1. So let's try the same thing with question 2. Let's make a different colour so we can tell the two questions apart. So first step is always write down the formula. Show whoever's looking at this that you understand how the formula works and what it is. And once you've written down the formula, start substituting. So we know that the area is 3,920.6. We have the half. And then A and B are going to be the two sides either side of the angle. So we've got 118.8 and we've got 78.7. Then we multiply by the sin of C, which we don't know yet. So now we've done our substitution. We need to look through this, look for things to simplify. And again, we've got 3 multiplications in the middle, which we can actually do. So the area is not going to change on my next line, but the next 3 terms will. So let's type them into a calculator. 0.5 times 118.8 times 78.7. Those are the numbers we can use right now. And that's going to give me 4,674.78. Again, we're still needing to multiply by sin C. So now we need to solve the equation. We want to get C on its own. And so the first thing to do is divide both sides by that 4,000 figure. And we do that to both sides. So we're dividing the area by that. That should give us 0.838670,482. So I've just divided that 3,000 number by the 4,000 number. On the other side, I've divided the 4,000 by itself, so it's gone, and we've just got sin C. So the final thing to do is get rid of the sin by using inverse sin. So on my calculator, it's shift and sin, use a 0.8 number, and that's giving me, I'm getting 56.99999. So that's so close to 57. I'm pretty sure 57 is going to be the exact answer, and the decimal places at the end are just a rounding error. So the answer to question 2 is 57 degrees. Moving on to question 3. So again, using the same method, write down the formula, half AB sine C, and then substitute into that formula. So we have the half, the A and B are going to be the two sides, 204.6 and 339.9. Then we're multiplying by sin C, which we don't know yet, and all of that is equal to the area, which is 27,400.5. So then we want to simplify this. So again, we've got those 3 numbers being multiplied together that we can simplify. The half times 204.6 times 339.9. All of that together is giving me 34,771.77, which has been multiplied by sin C and is equal to the area. So then the next step is to start to work through the equation. So let's divide both sides by that 34,000 figure. That means that the area, 27,400.5, needs to be divided by it. So that's going to give me sin C is equal to 0.7888009928. The last step is to get rid of the sin on the c, and that's by doing inverse sin. So the inverse sin of the 0.788 figure is going to give us an answer of 52 degrees. Now again, I didn't get through to my calculator. I got 51.9999, then 2324. But again, safe to say that's caused by a rounding error. And if we're going to round it anyway, we'll be getting 52 degrees anyway. Now, an important thing to note here, writing down the answer, is that in the diagram, the side of the angle is labelled B. And I've written the 52 degrees next to B. So why is my formula giving me C equals? Well, it's basically the A, B, and C, they're all interchangeable. So, for example, we could have half BC equals sin A for the area. And all it is that all these can change around, but the A, B, and C, they have to be different letters, but they can be a different order. So, for example, if we're trying to find B, then it would be half of AC sin B. But there's no point swapping all letters around. You're just going to get yourself confused. So I'm just using the kind of standard formula, and all you have to do is remember that it's going to work as long as the two sides are at either side of the angle. But at the end, if you are using the standard formula, just realise that maybe the question might have a different label. Usually it's something like X, but it could be something else. So moving on to question 4. So again, I'm going to write the standard formula down. Half AB sine C is the area. First step is to substitute. So for question 4, A is going to be 154.3. You could say A is 180 as well. Again, it doesn't matter which way around those two are, as long as they're next to the angle, which we need to multiply by, and that is equal to the area, which is 7,359. So now we need to simplify what we have. So multiply the three numbers together that are next to each other, and that should give you an answer of 13,887. Still need to multiply by sin c, and it's still equal to the area. So now we need to solve the equation. So let's divide both sides by the 13,000 figure. So dividing it by itself, it's going to cancel out. So we'll have sin c on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, we divide the 7,000 figure by the 13,000 figure, and that's giving us 0.529920069. So the final step is to find inverse sine of that number, and that's giving me that our angle is 32 degrees. And again, in the standard formula, I've labelled that C, but now looking at the question, it's labelled B. Is it going to make a difference? I'll just write down the answer, 32 degrees. Finally, I'm going to move on to question 5. Again, write the formula down first. When we run out of room and clear the page, it's really useful to write it down because we can't see it from the previous questions, but it's also a really good way to memorise the formulas. Substitute in a half times the two sides, 72.2 and 114.1, and then multiplied by sin c. And it's all equal to the area, 2,362.6. So then we can clean this up by doing part of the multiplication. 0.5 times 72.2 times 114.1, giving us 4,119.01 times sin c, and still equal to the area. So now we need to divide both sides by the 4,000 number to get sin c on its own. And that is going to give us 0.573584429. Find inverse sin of that number, and that's given us that C is equal to 35 degrees. So looking at the question, the missing angle B must be 35 degrees. Moving on to the hard questions, we have another example of a reverse question. We're told what the area is, but this time we have the angles and we're looking for a missing side. But it's going to be the same method we used with the medium questions. So for question 1, again, write down the formula. The area is equal to half AB sine C, and we are going to substitute. So we have the half. A is labelled 80.9, and B we don't know. So we'll leave B as a letter. Then for sine C, we actually know what C is. It's the angle, and it's 68 degrees. And all of that is equal to the area, 3,180.4. And again, we've got that kind of clean-up phase now where some of the things can be multiplied together. Now, what you'll notice here is that we have the half times 80.9, and they can be multiplied. But then the b's being multiplied and the sin 68 is being multiplied. And because everything's being multiplied together, the actual order of the multiplication doesn't matter. If you think about it, 3 times 4 is 12, but 4 times 3 is 12 as well. Because the order of multiplication doesn't matter, we can also multiply the sin 68, even though it's not next to the other two terms. So on my calculator, I get a half, multiply it by 80.9, and then I'm going to multiply it by sin, open the brackets, type in 68, and close the brackets. Altogether, that is giving me 37.5. And then we have some decimal places, and because I've not finished the question yet, I want to round right at the very end. I am just going to write down, let's say, 4 decimal places. So 0, 4, and then 6. Now, all those numbers were being multiplied by b, so I need to write b in, and it's still equal to the area. Now, this time, the kind of clean-up phase is a little bit more complicated because everything's not next to each other, but the final bit is a little bit easier now because we need to divide both sides by the 35 number to get b on its own. We take the area, 3,180.4, divide it by that number, 35.5046, and that's going to give us our answer. B is equal to 84.8 centimetres. And I've rounded that to 1 decimal place. Moving on to question 2, works the same way. Write down the formula, substitute into the formula, and this time A is missing, but B would be the 222.3 multiplied by the sine of the angle, 86, and that's all equal to the area, 27,176.5. So again, we can clean up the things that are next to each other and be multiplied. So we can multiply these two numbers together. But remember, because everything's being multiplied, we can also multiply by the half as well. So a half multiplied by 222.3 multiplied by sin 86. That's giving me altogether 110 point. Then again, I'm going to do about 4 decimal places just to rule out any rounding errors later on. So 0.8, but then 7, 9, 2. That's been multiplied by A, and it's equal to the area. So finally, we can solve the equation, divide both sides by the 110 figure. So we're dividing the area by that, and that gives us our answer. A is equal to 245, and to 1 decimal place, it's a 0.1 centimetres. Remember, we're finding a side, so the units will be in centimetres. Moving on to question 3, we are going to write down the formula. We are going to substitute into the formula, and then we're going to find parts that we can multiply together. So with all those things being multiplied together, we've got the half, we've got the side, and we've got the angle that we can multiply together. Altogether, that should give you 21.7864. And again, if we're into 1 decimal place at the end, have a good kind of 3 extra decimal places in your calculation to rule out any rounding errors. We didn't multiply by b, that needs writing in, and it's equal to the area. So now we need to solve the equation for b. We can divide both sides by the 21 number that we just worked out, and dividing the area by that is going to give us 35.3, and it'll be in centimetres. Moving on to question 4, we're going to write the formula down, but then looking at the diagram, what you'll find is that the algebra letters you're using will not necessarily correspond to the ones in the question. Now, you can try and change your formula to match those numbers. It might be easier to change the question. So 46 is our angle, so that'll be capital C, and then little a and little b will be next to it for the sides. So you see that missing side was labelled C, but now I have to change it to an A just so I can work with my formula. That's absolutely fine to do. It's just that right at the very end, I just need to make sure that I do say that the little c is the answer and use a notation of the question right at the end. So let's substitute. Let's multiply all the numbers together that we can. Leave plenty decimal places. And we're still multiplying by the missing side, and it's still equal to the area. Finally, we're going to solve the equation, and that should give you exactly 280 centimetres. And then right at the end, just remember, I did change the question slightly, so we'll get rid of those labels. And so it's the missing side C is actually the 280 centimetres. So again, at the end, just make sure that the notation you're using matches up with the question. So let's see how quickly we can do the final question. Writing down the formula, substituting into the formula, multiplying together any numbers that can be multiplied together, leaving plenty decimal places, and then solving the equation. And finally, making sure that what you've got is labelled nice and clearly as the answer. And now that's taken about a minute and a half, and we have everything nice and clearly laid out for the examiner or for your teacher to see exactly what you were thinking and what you wanted to do. So even if we have made a mistake somewhere, we are going to get almost all of the marks.
Ouch! This is why in some videos I have unexplained scratches.